Hey Bible lovers, I'm Tim Nichols and I'm here to bring you your Nichols Worth, and today from Thomas Nelson we're featuring the New King James Sovereign, which is a new release. So we have the Sovereign series now available in the New King James, but I'm also going to pull in the King James and I'm going to pull in the Canterbury. So now let's talk about apples to apples here first. When you are comparing the King James Sovereign and pulling in the New King James Sovereign, which does have a little bit of differences we'll talk about, and you're comparing it to the Schuyler Canterbury, one thing you really need to consider is this is the full size. This has an 11-point font. It's going to have a lot of gutter space, where this one, the gutter is kind of tight. So I don't have a personal size Canterbury, but what I can tell you is the personal size Canterbury only has an 8.5-point font, where this one has a 9.5-point font. Both of these have that really nice King James and New King James comfort print. So now let's talk about some ways they compare to the Canterbury. Okay. The drop caps, they do look similar, but when you look at them, they're not exactly the same. These are a bit more fancy and ornate. And another way that they're similar is they're laid out somewhat similarly, including the Psalms and Proverbs are both single column in both of them, while the rest of your text is going to be double column. They also have a similar note system on the bottom. And then they have your red accents, like your red accent verses. But like one difference, you're going to see that the subheadings here are red, while these are black. So a lot of people said that the Sovereign is a ripoff of the Canterbury. And while they may be similar, and while the idea may have been to reach an audience that can't afford a Canterbury and kind of pull them into the Thomas Nelson, more mass-produced, more affordable, because this thing's about 200 bucks. This thing's like 65, 70 bucks. There's a big difference in price. So yes, they are similar. Yes, it was probably intentional, but at the end of the day, there's really nothing new under the sun. And if you go back 200 years, I guarantee you're going to find out that Schuyler got their idea from somebody as well. So people need to calm down when it comes to ripping off ideas and different things. Bibles are Bibles, and they're laid out the way they're laid out. Now let's take a quick look at the Schuyler. 28 GSM paper. You can see that it's the endopaque paper. This is somewhere in the 30s. This is not the premium text block. This is not the 36 GSM European paper, but it's very nice. It's very thick. And as you can see, the ghosting is pretty minimal. I'm going to say, let's go to the single column setup again, just so we can see. I'm going to say those are very comparable. Now the drop caps in these, they're not as consistent, and the print in these are very crisp. Every now and then you'll see a little bit of blurring, or you'll see a little bit of color variation. But for what you get for the price, this thing is incredible. So now let's go ahead and take the Schuyler out of the equation, and let's compare Thomas Nelson to Thomas Nelson. And you will notice one thing right away. One of the big differences is that the poetry, or the Psalms and Proverbs, are in double column in the New King James, and they're in single column in the King James. And the reason for that is the KJV has a lower word count than the NKJV. There's more words in here, so it would have made it much thicker. So sometimes you have to make decisions. So while this is still the Sovereign layout with the drop caps, you're going to see that poetry in double column. So now let's go into the red letters. This has been another kind of online Bible group fuss regarding the Sovereign series with Thomas Nelson. They say that the red letters are terrible. So we're not going to be in the same spots, but you can see some red letters. Let me find a spot with more. There you go. That's a lot of red letter there. Now let's pull the Canterbury back in. All right. So we're going to go to the New Testament. We're going to find us some red letters. And there you have it. Okay. Now these are a little more crimson-y. These are a little more kind of red. But when you really compare the two, let's lay them. I'm not seeing a big difference there. So here is what I think is going on. The Canterbury's drop caps are really consistent and kind of not as thick and bulky right there, to where the ones in the Sovereign have a lot more color and they're a lot darker, and it creates that illusion that the red letters are more of a pink, but that's not the case. One more critical difference between the Sovereign series and the Canterbury that I think we need to point out is when you get to the beginning of a book, this one has a brief little introduction, and it continues the drop cap, and then it has a double line that kind of separates the introduction from the text. So yes, they're similar. Yes, Thomas Nelson was pretty savvy to put something out that's very similar to the Schuyler, but at the end of the day, they are different and they meet different needs. The person that wants a Schuyler, they're not going to buy a Sovereign. I mean, look at the differences are drastic. Okay, the leather on this one is much cheaper. The liner is synthetic. It is edge line, but there's no comparison to the two. So people that are in the market for this, they're not even going to be looking at this. People that are wanting this are not going to be looking at this. And again, the same with the NKJV. I do like the fact they put Holy Bible, stamped that on the cover. I think that's pretty cool. You got the same spines, same design, the little diamond, really ornate, really nice. I think Thomas Nelson really hit a home run with the Sovereign series, and I really look forward to seeing what they're going to do with it in the future. There you have it. Keep calm. Jesus on this, your Nichols Worth.